Hey guys, Mr. Milton here. Today we are going to talk about factoring quadratics when a does not equal 1. At the end of this video, you should be able to factor trinomial into two binomials when a does not equal 1. Okay, so recall when we had problems like this, x squared plus 10x or plus 16, we would set up our x in our box and we try to find two numbers that multiply to give us 16, add it to give us 10, and then we would put it in our box, factor it out. In our box, at the beginning of our box, we'd have our first term in the first box, x squared, last term in our last box, 16, and then these two missing boxes we'd put here. Okay, so now we have to think of two numbers that multiply to give us 16 and add to give us 10. Those two numbers, 2 and 8, 2 plus 8 is 10, 2 times 8 is 16. And so we put those values, 2x, 8x in this box, go through each row and each column and take out the GCF. GCF between x and 2x is x squared and 2x is x. Between 8x and 16 is 8. Between 2x and 16 is 2. Between x squared and 8x is x. And so our factors would be x plus 2 and x plus 8. Okay. Usually, or as we factor this out, notice that this is just going to be x and x. We don't have to think too hard about it because it's the only way that we can get x squared. Alright, but now let's look at a tougher problem. Notice in this problem that a was 1. Okay, what if we were given 4x squared plus 13x plus 10? Are we allowed to put x and x in our first terms in the binomial? The answer will be no, because we need our first terms to multiply to get 4x squared and not just x squared. So we'll finish that problem at the bottom of these notes. Okay. When the a value is not 1, factoring becomes a little bit more difficult. So when a is not 1, we're going to follow this process. We're always going to check for GCF. Always check for GCF, because sometimes we'll luck out and that GCF will make it so that a is 1 again. Okay. And so then we won't have to go through this whole process. If there's 1, you take it out just like lesson 3 and factor whatever's left over. Okay, if there's not 1, you'll have to use the X box method. Okay. And notice that this is really the same thing that we just did in the last lesson. We'll change it just a little bit. Okay, this is very easy to forget to use the GCF though. So it's very easy to forget to use the GCF. Make sure you do that. Okay. Alright. So what we'll do for the Xbox method is we'll have to change our product. Let's see. In the Xbox method. Okay, so if we refer up to this top problem, we chose to multiply 16, and the way I explained it is C is our product number. Okay, in reality, C is not our product number, but it's actually A times C, which is our product number. Okay, and so when A was 1, A was just 1. 1 times C is 16, so it really didn't matter that A was there or not. But now, when we have a problem like 4x squared plus 13x plus 10, okay, from the top of this worksheet, okay, A is now 4, and B is 13, and C is 10. Okay, I'm writing that out, not that you have to write it out every time, but just so we can see where these numbers are coming from. So now in our Xbox method, instead of just saying, hey, we need to find two numbers that multiply to give us 10, we need to find two numbers that multiply to give us 4 times 10, or 40. Two numbers that multiply to give us 40 and add to give us 13. All right. Okay, and so as we think about these numbers, if you have a tough time thinking about numbers, okay, the best advice that I can give you is just to make a table. Okay, and just go start with 1 and work your way up. 3 doesn't go in there, 4 and 10, 5 and 8, 7, 8, and 5. Okay. Okay, so we don't need to repeat any numbers because we look at our signs. This sign's positive, telling us that our signs are going to be the same. This sign's positive, telling us that both signs are going to be positive. So this is how it's going to be. We've got 41, 22, 14, 13. So 5 and 8 are our two numbers. Okay, and so we have 5 and 8 here, just like we did before. Now we'll make our box, again, just like before. There's no difference here. That's the nice part about this box method, is that you don't have to remember a different thing now that A is not 1. It might take a little bit longer, but you don't have to remember a different thing. First term in the first box, last term in the last box, and now we take our two terms that we just figured out, 5x and 8x, and put them in these two boxes. And then we'll go through and take the GCF out of each row and each column. So the GCF here, 4x squared and 8x will be 4x. GCF between 5x and 10 is 5. GCF between 8x and 10 is 2. Yep. And GCF between 4x squared and 5x is x. And so then we have our binomial answer, x plus 2, 4x plus 5. Okay, notice that the shortcut does not work when A is not 1. So when A is not 1, we didn't have just end up in 5 and 8 like we were able to last time. Okay. Alright, so we'll do some more practice problems on the back. We'll go through this, I think mostly together so that we can see how it works out. And hopefully in this practice you will get the hang of it a little bit better. Okay, so A is not 1. Remember that we're going to check for the GCF. 3x squared, 12x minus 15. Okay, so I see that there's a 3 that goes into each of these terms. So I'm going to factor that out, leave the rest of it inside the parentheses, plus 4x minus 5. And now I'm going to do my x box method, or with these. I'm going to find two numbers that multiply to give me negative 5 and add to give me 4. Those two numbers are going to be 5 and negative 1. Okay? And because x is 1, then I just know that that's going to be x plus 5, x minus 1. Okay, so that's nice. When x is 1, I get to use my shortcut. I don't have to do the box method. Alright, second problem, I have 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. There's no GCF here, so now I'll use my x box method. I'm going to do two numbers that multiply to give me 4. Add to give me 5. Those two numbers, 4 and 1. So box now. Alright, so I have 2x squared here, 2 my last term, and now this middle term I split between these two, 4x and 1, x. And then I go through each row and each column and take out the GCF. My GCF here is x, my GCF here is 2. GCF here is 1, my GCF here is 2x. And so now I have my factors, 2x plus 1, x plus 2. Alright. If you want to pause and try these on your own before you come back and look at me do them, that's great. 6x, 23, okay, so nothing goes into 6 and 23, so and 7. So there's no GCF here. So I'll start with my Xbox method. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 6 times 7, 42, and add to give me negative 23. I think I know what it is, but I'll show the table anyway. Okay, so I'm looking to multiply to give me 42. I know that they're going to have the same sign. They're both going to be negative, so negative 1 and negative 42, negative 2, negative 21. Okay, these two will add up to negative 23. So I know my numbers are negative 2, negative 21. Go into my box now. Okay, and now my first term in my first box, my last term in my last box, two middle terms split. Okay, and then I'll find my GCF. So GCF here will be negative 3, or sorry, 3x, negative. Here I'll take out 2x, here I'll take out 7, here I'll take out 1. Now notice that when I did this the first time, I did not take out any negatives, even though we have negatives here. Now I have to think about how to change these signs so that when we do this, the negatives work out. Okay. Now as we go through here, I need to find out how can I change these signs so that they're going to be positive here, negative here. And usually what you'll see is that there's a negative here, positive here. These will both be negative. Okay, negative times negative is positive, negative times positive is negative, negative times positive is negative, positive times positive is positive. Okay, so just going through and checking to make sure that those signs are right will probably be the toughest part of problems like that. Okay, but now that we have it factored out, we have 3x minus 1, 2x minus 7. Okay, number 4, 2x cubed minus 12x squared minus 13x. Anytime we have this cube, we really haven't talked about factoring those, so it should be a hint like, hey, there might be a GCF here. And there is. Between all these numbers, you see that 2x evenly divides into all these numbers. So I'm going to factor it out, see what I'm left with. I'm left with x squared minus 6x minus 16. Okay? And so, that's nice for us because, again, when we have it this way, negative 16, negative 6, we don't have to do the box anymore. Once we find these two numbers that multiply to give us negative 16 and add to give us negative 6, that is going to give us negative 8 and positive 2. Then we kind of have our answer. The 2x, can't forget what we factored out already. The x's, okay? And then I have minus 8 plus 2. Okay, so notice factoring out that GCF really does help this problem go by a lot faster. So if you make sure you check for it so you can save yourself that time. Okay, especially on a test or a quiz where you might need that time later. Alright. Number 5. Okay, again I check for GCF. Nothing goes into 6, 19, and 10. So now I'll work to my x. Two numbers that multiply to give me 6 times 10, 60, and add to give me 19. Those two numbers, I think I got what they are, but I'll show a table just for your help. 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15. 4 plus 15 is 19. This is 23, 32, 61, so 4 and 15 works. Okay, so now in my box, okay, first term, first box, last term, last box, and then I have 4x, 15x in the other two boxes. Really doesn't matter which order you put those in. Okay, I'll take out my GCF between all of these, 3x, okay, and then there's my answer, 3x plus 2, 2x plus 5. Okay, finally, we'll do this last problem. As I look here, 18, 12, 6, I see that I should be able to factor out 6 from each of these. So I factor out 6, I'm left with 3x squared minus 2x minus 1. Okay, now notice even though we took out a GCF, a is not 1. So we'll still have to do the box method in this case to get our final answer. But we will not want to forget this 6 in our final answer. So, box, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me negative 3, add to give me negative 2. Those two numbers would be negative 3 and positive 1. Okay, make a table. Okay, so that's 3x squared, first term, first box, last term, last box. These two terms that we just came up with in the two boxes. Okay, and now we'll go through each row in each column. Take the GCF, this is negative 1, this is 1. Notice I have two negatives in a row, so I know I can take out that negative. Okay, and so we have 3x plus 1 and x minus 1. Alright, so gone through a few problems there, factoring quadratics using the Xbox method. Hopefully with that practice you understand the thought process of it. Make sure that you are going through these problems. Practice is the only way that you're going to be good enough at these to be able to reel them off in a row on a test or a quiz. Okay? Alright, see ya.